On this Sunday night, questions in the wake of Nicolas Maduro's capture. With chaos following the American military strike on Venezuela's capital and questions about its legality.
You don't treat lawlessness with other lawlessness.
And as an interim president and Venezuelan viceroy are named, how industry experts say the move could impact the price of oil. Concerns the Trump administration won't stop at Venezuela.
He does what he says, and he's willing to use force.
Plus, who now poses the greatest threat to Canada's Arctic sovereignty? And how the Canadian lumber industry's reliance on the U.S. and imperial measurements means it's not measuring up for new opportunities abroad.
Global National. Reporting tonight, Colleen Christie.
Good evening. Thanks for joining us. The aftermath of the U.S. military's deadly raid on Venezuela's capital early Saturday to capture authoritarian President Nicolas Maduro is now coming into focus. Maduro is in U.S. custody facing charges related to drug smuggling. But uncertainty hangs over Venezuela as U.S. President Donald Trump insists his administration will run the country in the meantime, a stance that's stirring more controversy as he faces accusations of violating international law. Candice Cole has tonight's top story.
Damage and destruction are now all that's left of the military fortress deposed Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro called home.
Vean ustedes ahí todo lo que pasó.
This man now homeless as a result of the U.S. military's clandestine operation to capture Maduro and his wife, Celia, early Saturday morning. Both are now being held at a detention facility in Brooklyn, New York, awaiting a court appearance Monday. They, along with 4 others, Maduro's son, 2 former government officials, and an alleged leader of the notorious Venezuelan gang Tren de Aragua, all named in this indictment, facing charges on narco-terrorism, drug trafficking, and weapons dating back to 1999. When asked on CBS's Face the Nation why not capture everyone named in the indictment, Secretary of State Marco Rubio said,
"They're already complaining about this one operation. Imagine the howls we would have from everybody else if we actually had to go and stay there 4 days to capture 4 other people. We got the top priority."
Venezuela's Vice President Delcy Rodriguez is now interim president as ordered by Venezuela's Supreme Court.
She's essentially willing to do what we think is necessary to make Venezuela great again.
Saturday, U.S. President Donald Trump said the United States would run the country temporarily, but expressed interest in working with Rodriguez for the time being. However, in an interview with The Atlantic, Trump threatened her with a similar fate, saying, quote, if she doesn't do what's right, she is going to pay a very big price, probably bigger than Maduro.
She doesn't have the support within or the respect within the country.
Trump dismissed any notion of power going to opposition leader and Nobel Prize winner Maria Corina Machado. Shortly after learning of Maduro's capture, Machado called for his opponent, Edmundo Gonzalez, widely recognized as the winner of Venezuela's 2024 presidential election, to assume power immediately as mandated by the Constitution. A sentiment echoed by European leaders as well. But with Maduro now gone, everyday Venezuelans are paying the price. Chaos in the streets with reports of looting and people armed with weapons, and long lines to get basic necessities.
Mira la situación que estamos viviendo.
This woman says the people are anxious and desperate while trying to navigate the uncertainty.
Look, Maduro's a horrible, horrible person, but you don't treat lawlessness with other lawlessness, and that's what's happened here.
Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer on ABC's This Week signaling Trump's hostile takeover of Venezuela's government will be a top priority as Congress goes back into session this week.
Do ships off the water. They went inside Venezuela, bombed civilian as well as military places, and it's a violation of the law to do what they did without getting the authorization of Congress.
But other lawmakers, like Congressman Jim Jordan on CNN, are now throwing their support behind Trump.
I trust the president to make decisions that are in the best interest of Americans, of our country.
The UN will hold an emergency meeting Monday morning at the request of Venezuela. UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres has expressed deep concerns about international law being violated, calling Trump's actions a dangerous precedent. Colleen?
Candice Cole in Washington. Thanks, Candice. Maduro's arrest marks a dramatic turn for the leader and caps a long and controversial political career. A former bus driver and union leader, Maduro rose through the ranks of former Venezuelan President Hugo Chávez's socialist movement. Maduro narrowly won the presidency after Chávez died in 2013. Since then, his re-elections have been widely disputed. Maduro's rule has been marked by economic collapse, widespread shortages, mass emigration, and allegations of human rights abuses. Sanctions and accusations of authoritarianism have left Venezuela isolated and in crisis. And there are concerns America's actions in Venezuela are signaling a shift in U.S. foreign policy, one that prioritizes the needs and desires of the Trump administration over all else. As legal experts question the legality of Maduro's removal by the U.S., other countries, including ones considered American allies, are analyzing what it could mean for their relations to the U.S. Heidi Petracek has more.
Hands up, Venezuela! This rally in Montreal was one of several across the country denouncing the Trump administration's sudden and dramatic capture of Venezuela's president as blatant imperialism. At a rally in Halifax,
the legal norms that have governed international affairs, at least symbolically, those are now thrown into the bin. And Chávez did so much to the people.
Tempers flared when a man who said he fled Venezuela to Canada at 5 years old insisted U.S. intervention to remove Nicolas Maduro should be celebrated instead.
These guys are going to be on the wrong side of history. January 3rd is going to be a national holiday in Venezuela when it's all said and done.
No matter the side, there is no question history has been made by Trump.
He does what he says, and he's willing to use force,
placing the U.S. on a trajectory not seen since the 2003 invasion of Iraq.
We've kind of shed the demons of Iraq, and we're now back to using force where it serves our national interests, and I believe our allies and people throughout the middle.
What's next is a wild card. Iran, another authoritarian regime the president has turned attention to. Cuba, Colombia, and Panama also recently targeted in comments by the U.S. administration.
The Americans make it very clear that they are going back to a sphere of influence modeling.
The White House's national security strategy released last month, he says, is a deviation from long-standing norms that can't be ignored. The United States must be preeminent in the Western Hemisphere as a condition of our security and prosperity, it states, a condition that allows us to assert ourselves confidently where and when we need to in the region. All testing the nerves of nations around the globe, attention heightened by a social media post from the wife of Trump's deputy chief of staff for policy Saturday, a map of Greenland covered with the stars and stripes and the word soon, prompting Greenland's prime minister to respond, quote, "Our future is not decided by social media posts. That said, the image is disrespectful."
Is he now also sending a message to the Chinese and to the Russians, hey, you can do what you want in your sphere of influence?
For those living in what the U.S. president has often called the 51st state, the actions of the global giant to the south have renewed doubt and worry. Heidi Petracek, Global News, Halifax.
The U.S. is now set to take control of Venezuela's diminished energy sector, a move that could have a big impact on crude oil markets. President Trump has suggested he intends to diversify competition in the international oil market as they build the country's infrastructure. This comes after last year saw the worst annual loss for crude since the pandemic, falling 20%. While development in Venezuela may take time, experts expect U.S. markets could see a positive rebound in the weeks to come.
We know that markets very often trade expectations, trade forecasts, and in this world, they will expect that oil production out of Venezuela will pick up over the next month and years.
While this price drop may result in some price relief in the States and Europe, experts also say it could put pressure on the Canadian crude oil market. In 2024, Canada shipped nearly 4.4 million barrels of crude to the U.S. a day. Many feel the increased competition could reduce that demand, forcing Canadian producers to look elsewhere. Air travel across the Caribbean is returning to normal today after the U.S. Federal Aviation Administration placed heavy restrictions on the airspace Saturday. After hundreds of cancellations yesterday, several airlines confirmed they have resumed service. Analysts say it could take several days to resolve the backlog. Air Canada says its Caribbean and South American operations are running normally today under the guidance of Transport Canada. With international sovereignty top of mind, many officials here say one of the emerging security challenges Canada faces is in the Arctic. In its first budget, the Carney government announced $1 billion to develop the region, but improvements take time. Nathaniel Dove looks at Canadian defenses there now and the challenges they face.
It was an unprecedented public warning from Canada's top spy for a region considered remote and exposed.
Non-Arctic states, including the People's Republic of China, seek to gain a strategic and economic foothold in the region. Russia, an Arctic state with a significant military presence in the region, remains unpredictable and aggressive.
In November, CSIS's director, addressing Canadians directly for the first time, warned of a significant intelligence interest in Canada's Arctic, saying the Security Intelligence Service detected both China and Russia gathering intelligence in the area. Key to accessing Canada's north is creating mis- and disinformation, which sows distrust, an expert says.
We are basically at war with one another. How then do you turn around and say, okay, and now we have to start focusing on talking about these very expensive defense expenditures.
The University of Calgary's Rob Hubert says geopolitical uncertainty can help disinformation spread.
You get someone such as Trump doing the tariffs, doing the threats for annexation, then you just compound it in terms of any of the attacks on social media.
A survey from a Quebec-based think tank found a plurality of Northerners believe the United States is a greater threat to Canada's north than Russia.
Which country presents the greatest threat to Canada's Arctic right now?
Russia. Full stop.
Retired General Dennis Thompson tells Global News invasion isn't likely. Resources are hard to access in the north and infrastructure limited.
The Russians will create chaos in order to dissuade anybody from using the Northwest Passage.
Thompson says Russia likely wants most shipping to go through the Northern Sea route and pay Russia for the privilege to do so. But the challenge remains how to assert control over the vast area.
It's about deterrence. The big thing from a military perspective is we need to know what's up there. And that speaks to this concept of surveillance.
For now, Canada relies on the American military in Alaska and the ability to adequately monitor and, if necessary, defend ourselves is still years away.
Our adversaries are not going to wait for us.
Nathaniel Dove, Global News, Toronto.
In Alberta, Calgary's mayor is again urging residents to reduce their water consumption as crews work to repair last week's severe water main break. Data from the city shows water consumption rose to nearly 500 million litres, up 20 million since New Year's Day. That's nearing unsustainable levels for the city's already strained potable water supply. Stage 4 water restrictions are already in place, and the repairs are expected to take 2 weeks. Donald Trump headed to court. Coming up, how the U.S. president faces legal challenges this year on everything from tariffs to firings. Police in Switzerland say they've identified all 40 people who died in a bar fire that broke out on New Year's Eve. Today, hundreds of people paid tribute to the victims, some as young as 14 and 15 years old. Prosecutors say the flames were likely caused by sparklers igniting the ceiling of the bar. 2 of the bar's managers are now under investigation for homicide due to negligence. In northern Nigeria, at least 30 people were killed after gunmen attacked a market on Saturday. An unspecified number of people were also kidnapped, including children. Police and witnesses say the assailants were bandits who arrived on motorbikes and began shooting indiscriminately. They looted and burned down shopping stalls. Some victims were also rounded up and killed. A manhunt is now underway for the gunmen, with authorities hoping to rescue their hostages. The U.S. Supreme Court is preparing to hear more than a dozen cases this year that could test the limits of President Donald Trump's power. The cases involve everything from the legality of his sweeping tariffs to the president's ability to fire members of historically independent agencies. Jackson Proskow looks at the legal challenges that lie ahead.
The 9 Supreme Court justices will soon be tested like never before as they face a slew of decisions that could redefine the power of the American presidency.
I think it's one of the most important cases in the history of our country.
For President Donald Trump, one case stands above them all: tariffs, his signature economic policy.
You know, we have a big decision. Hopefully we're going to get the right decision. It's such a big thing in the Supreme Court right now.
In the new year, the court will decide whether Trump's so-called Liberation Day tariffs are legal, since he bypassed Congress, which is supposed to have tariff authority. During arguments last fall, the justices appeared skeptical and seemed poised to rule against the president.
I mean, it could have a very serious impact. There would certainly, at least immediately, those tariffs would become unenforceable, or you would have to take them back.
Several other cases will also test the limits of Trump's authority to act unilaterally, and here he may face less resistance. There's the issue of birthright citizenship, a right enshrined in the U.S. Constitution. Trump wants to end the practice for children whose parents are in the U.S. illegally.
It wasn't meant for these children. It wasn't meant for people that escaped or invaded, came into our country illegally.
2 other cases will determine Trump's ability to fire people from historically independent agencies like the Federal Trade Commission. The court will also decide whether the president has the power to fire members of the Federal Reserve, an independent agency that sets interest rates and controls inflation. Economists have warned that politicizing the central bank could jeopardize the credibility of U.S. monetary policy.
Donald Trump still has an authoritarian streak in the sense that he believes he can get anything done that he wants and that the courts should not be standing in his way.
It's rare for a president's actions to so thoroughly dominate the docket. Trump seems happy to have his policies tested in court. He's seeking validation that his unprecedented actions are lawful. More often than not, the conservative majority has agreed.
And while occasionally the Trump administration will lose a ruling before the Supreme Court, you're really not going to lose money in the long run by betting they'll always be for him.
So far, every single decision issued by the court in its current term has sided with the president, odds Trump is hoping to play in the year ahead. Jackson Proskow, Global News, Washington.
Ahead, why using imperial measurements is hobbling Canada's ability to attract new lumber markets. Hundreds of thousands of Canadians who work in forestry are hoping Ottawa can quickly approve new measures to help the ailing industry. Punishing U.S. tariffs have left the sector reeling. Advocates have been pushing the Carney government for change, including moving the industry to metric. But as David Aiken reports, it would come with some serious challenges.
3 centimeters is a light snowfall.
Canada went metric in the 1970s, often over strong protests, and only with lots of persuasion and education. But the country's timber mills never switched. After all, with nearly 90% of their product going into the United States, they stuck with the measurement system that their best customer was using, imperial widths.
We don't need that lumber, obviously.
That worked fine until Donald Trump came along with punishing tariffs on Canadian softwood, the spruce, the pine, the fir. Tariffs of more than 45%. As BC Premier David Eby has said, Americans can buy timber from Russia cheaper than they can from Canada. Canada's softwood lumber mills have responded to those tariffs, most often by laying off workers or shutting mills altogether. Some in the industry, though, would like to find new buyers for Canada's top-grade lumber in China, Japan, and in Europe. One big problem, though, Asian and European home builders work off the metric system. And Canada's sawmills are built to churn out 2x4s and 3x8s and other standard imperial sizes for the American market.
Opportunities in India, opportunities in Vietnam, South Korea, you know, and it can be in the case of Japan. Japan wants high quality. You know, we have some mills that have retooled specifically for a Japanese customer.
And it's not just timber. Retooling a factory to make the wood pallets and other wooden packaging to a European standard is expensive and time-consuming.
For us as an industry to be able to pivot to support Canadian manufacturers in trade expansion will require significant investment not only in machinery upgrades, which could be $2 million and 3-year wait time to get that machine.
Experts caution MPs, though, that going metric is not a quick fix. It could take years. And there is no diversification strategy that will completely replace the American market.
Yes, we must diversify. Europe, Japan, South Korea, India, the Middle East, but let's be crystal clear. We cannot simply switch markets and walk away from the United States.
The number one priority for Canada's forestry industry is, of course, getting rid of Trump's punishing tariffs. But many industry players say that in the meantime, it is important to diversify to other markets, and that might mean going metric. David Aiken, Global News, Ottawa.
The annual skating party to celebrate the new year in true Canadian style. Next, people in Toronto laced up today for the city's annual New Year's skate party. 4 events were held across Toronto, hosted by Mayor Olivia Chow. Participants enjoyed free skate rentals, hot chocolate, outdoor activities, and music.
We need to make life more affordable for families, and the city has a lot of free things you could do. Skating is so quintessential Canadian. It's what I did when I first arrived to Canada in 1970. For newcomers wanting to feel they belong to the city, want to connect, skating is a good way to go.
That looks so fun. And that is Global National for this Sunday night. I'm Colleen Christie. Tonight's Your Canada is Dunfield, Newfoundland and Labrador. We love seeing your Canada. Please keep emailing your photos to globalnational@globalnews.ca. Thanks for watching. Donna will be back with you tomorrow. Have a great night.